Dogman. That's the least of what Navajo Nation police officers fear. Out here, beneath the shadow of the mesas, where the red dust swirls in the wind like ancient whispers, the night isn't silent. It listens. It watches. It waits. When an officer rolls down a narrow dirt road lit only by high beams and moonlight, they're not just searching for suspects. They're tracing footsteps no one else wants to follow. They're responding to calls that start with a whisper and end in dead air. And sometimes, they aren't sure who or what they're responding to at all. We stopped giving names to what we see. Names give things power. That's what one veteran officer muttered when asked about a night call that ended with 4 units leaving the scene. None of them speaking a word, none willing to write a report. And when someone asked if it was Dogman, the officer just looked down, shook his head slowly, and said, "Worse." There's a rhythm to Navajo land. The sound of wind through juniper. The silence that falls just before something steps out of the dark. These men and women who wear the badge, they don't just police people. They police boundaries between what we understand and what we can't explain. This isn't about myths. This isn't old campfire smoke or tales designed to scare children. This is real. For them, it's routine. It's the heavy weight of a flashlight in your hand, not because it helps you see, but because it makes you feel less alone. And they'll all tell you the same thing, off the record. When you're out there long enough, the dark starts to feel aware. To understand what they face, you have to understand where they are. The Navajo Nation is a country within a country, 27,000 square miles of high desert, winding canyons, mesas that cast shadows longer than some towns, and remote valleys that don't appear on GPS. It stretches across Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah, forming the largest Native American territory in the United States. A place with a history older than the nation that surrounds it. But even that number, 27,000 square miles, fails to capture the scale. It's not just size, it's isolation. It's the kind of place where a single patrol car might be responsible for a district larger than some states, where a single radio call might mean the difference between a routine stop and a night you never talk about again. And yet, the Navajo Nation police operate with limited funding, sparse personnel, and aging equipment. It's not uncommon for officers to work shifts that stretch well beyond regulation, answering calls that take them deep into unlit wilderness with no backup, no cell signal, and often no way out if things go wrong. They drive these roads alone, headlights cutting through the dust, minds sharp from experience. Because out here, the danger isn't always criminal. There are things in this land that the law doesn't cover. Things that move in silence, that don't leave prints, or worse, leave prints that shouldn't exist. And still, they answer every call, because that's what they swore to do. Across America, the name Dogman has crawled its way into late-night talk radio, fringe documentaries, and internet forums. Described as a massive, bipedal creature, half wolf, half man, it's become a modern cryptid, a living myth. But for the Navajo, that description is too tidy, too safe. D.A. Roberts, an author and field researcher of cryptid encounters, has spent years collecting reports of Dogman sightings. His work has traced patterns that map neatly over tribal lands, often concentrated near the edges, where light ends and wilderness begins. He describes them as intelligent predators, creatures that don't just appear, but stalk, assess, and retreat when observed, as if they know they're being watched. And the Navajo officers? They've seen them, but they don't use that name. Because Dogman, to them, is just one piece of something larger. A symptom, not the cause. They speak of eyes that glow before a body is visible, of sounds, low, guttural growls that come from behind them when they're standing alone, of silhouettes crouching in unnatural positions, of footprints that begin mid-stride as though dropped there. Officers have shot at things that didn't bleed, have chased shadows that vanished between heartbeats, have taken reports from terrified residents only to arrive and find no sign of disturbance, just the lingering stench of decay in the air. But perhaps the most unsettling thing? The way animals act. Dogs refuse to go near certain areas. Horses buck violently with no clear reason. Livestock found dead with no wounds, just empty. And yet, the officers return, night after night. Because there are worse things than Dogman out there. It's easy to dismiss stories like these, to tuck them into the drawer labeled legend or imagination. But that's a mistake. Because these accounts aren't coming from civilians looking for attention. They're coming from trained professionals, from men and women who've spent years learning how to assess threat, how to remain calm, how to file clean reports. These are people who don't scare easy, who don't exaggerate, who measure their words like tools. So when they hesitate to speak, when their eyes shift before answering a question, it's not because they're unsure. It's because they know exactly what they saw. And they're afraid no one will believe them. You won't find most of these stories in official records. You'll find them in the space between shifts, in the quiet conversations held in the early hours of the morning over black coffee and half-lit parking lots. They're shared carefully, cautiously, like passing a weight from one person to another just to ease the burden for a while. These testimonies matter because they reveal something we've forgotten, something that still exists in the oldest places on this continent, a world not ruled by our laws, a world not shaped by our understanding. To step into the shoes of a Navajo officer is to enter that world every night. And in that world, fear wears many faces. In the vast expanse of the American Southwest, where the horizon stretches endlessly and the land whispers tales of old, a unique cadre of men and women don the badge, not just as enforcers of law, but as guardians of a legacy that dates back over a century. This is the story of the Navajo Nation Police, a force that stands as a testament to resilience, adaptation, and unwavering commitment. The origins of this distinguished force trace back to 1872, marking it as one of the oldest tribal police departments in the United States. Born out of necessity during a tumultuous era, the initial formation of the Navajo Police was a response to the challenges of maintaining order within the expansive Navajo lands. However, this early iteration was short-lived, dissolving after just 3 years. The subsequent decades saw the responsibility of law enforcement oscillate, often falling under the purview of federal agencies. It wasn't until 1959 that the Navajo Nation took a decisive step towards self-determination by re-establishing its own police force. This move was more than administrative. It was emblematic of a people reclaiming authority over their domain, ensuring that those who upheld the law were not outsiders, but individuals rooted in the very communities they served. Today, the Navajo Nation Police Department is a multifaceted entity, structured to address a myriad of challenges that arise within its jurisdiction. At the helm is the Chief of Police, supported by a cadre of 6 captains and 8 lieutenants. Their collective leadership oversees a range of specialized divisions, each tailored to address specific facets of law enforcement. Patrol units, the frontline defenders. These officers traverse the vast terrains, ensuring safety and responding to incidents that span from the mundane to the extraordinary. K-9 unit. Beyond their conventional roles in narcotics detection and search operations, these K-9 teams have been instrumental in revitalizing efforts to solve cold cases. bringing closure to families long haunted by uncertainty. Tactical Operations Team, trained to handle high-risk situations, this team stands ready to deploy in scenarios that demand precision, strategy, and courage. Traffic Unit. With miles of open roads crisscrossing the reservation, ensuring vehicular safety is paramount. This unit addresses infractions, conducts investigations, and promotes safe driving practices. Internal Affairs. Upholding the integrity of the badge, this division ensures that the trust bestowed upon the force by the community remains unbroken, investigating any deviations from the code of conduct. The geographical vastness of the Navajo Nation necessitates a decentralized approach. To this end, the department is segmented into 7 districts: Chinle, Crown Point, Dilken, Kayenta, Shiprock, Tuba City, and Window Rock. Each district operates semi-autonomously, with substations dotting the landscape. Some of these substations are manned by a lone officer, embodying the solitary nature of the duty, while others house teams of up to 5, fostering camaraderie amidst the isolation. The numbers paint a stark picture. With approximately 210 sworn officers, including 134 dedicated to patrol duties, the ratio translates to about 1.9 officers per 1,000 residents. When juxtaposed against the national average, this figure underscores the enormity of the task at hand. Each officer is entrusted with patrolling an area averaging 70 square miles, a testament to their dedication and the logistical challenges they surmount daily. Funding for the department is a mosaic of federal contracts, grants, and allocations from the Navajo Nation's coffers. This financial tapestry, while reflective of collaborative efforts, also highlights the perpetual balancing act of resource allocation in the face of expansive responsibilities. Yet, beyond the organizational charts and statistical data lies the heart of the force, the officers themselves. Their roles are as diverse as the landscapes they patrol, from mediating domestic disputes that threaten the fabric of families to combating the insidious spread of drug-related crimes. From orchestrating search and rescue missions in terrains that defy navigation to confronting incidents that elude conventional explanation, these officers embody versatility. But perhaps it's in the realm of the unexplained that their mettle is most tested. The Navajo lands are steeped in lore, with tales that blur the lines between myth and reality. For the officers, these aren't mere stories. They're encounters etched into memory, moments where the veil between worlds feels perilously thin. In understanding the structure and history of the Navajo Nation Police, one gains more than insight into an institution. One glimpses the soul of a people, their challenges, their triumphs, and the guardians who walk the line between tradition and modernity, seen and unseen day after day. The land is breathtaking, but beauty has teeth. The terrain that the Navajo Nation Police patrol isn't just vast, it's unpredictable, unforgiving, and, at times, completely indifferent to the idea of civilization. Here, a paved road might suddenly vanish into gravel, then into dirt, and then into something even less defined. Trails once cut by horse hooves hundreds of years ago now serve as the only paths leading to remote homes, ceremonial grounds, and places that even satellite imagery can't reach with certainty. And then there are the roads with no names at all, unmarked, unlit, unforgiving. Some officers keep hand-drawn maps taped to their dashboards, sketches passed down from more experienced colleagues, tracing paths known only through repetition and instinct. A wrong turn out here doesn't just cost time, it costs safety. It can cost lives. Patrol cars rattle across uneven land for hours at a time, suspension systems long worn down by constant strain. In winter, the snow transforms the mesas into ice-slick cliffs. In summer, the desert heat warps the horizon and shimmers illusions across the land. When a call comes in, There's no guessing how far or how isolated it might be. And always, there is the clock. The crushing truth that no matter how urgent the call, the officer may be 45 minutes away, sometimes more. The nearest backup, maybe an hour, maybe longer, maybe not coming at all. Radios falter in the canyons. Signal dies between ridges. There are pockets of silence, true silence, where even the static disappears. Officers call them dead zones. The locals call them something else. Thin places, where the world is quiet because something is listening. Imagine this. You're alone, driving at 2:37 a.m., following vague GPS coordinates to a domestic disturbance deep in the backcountry. There are no lights, no houses, just dirt, brush, and distant cliffs like jagged bones against the sky. You lose contact with dispatch halfway there. You keep going, because out here, there's no other choice. Then, as you crest a hill, headlights sweep across a clearing, and in that brief moment, you see movement. Just at the edge of the reach, tall, upright, moving against the grain of normal motion, like a puppet pulled by broken strings. You hit the brakes. It's gone. No tracks, no sound, just the soft creak of your engine cooling and your own breath inside the cruiser. Do you report it? Do you call it in, if you even can? Or do you do what many Navajo officers have learned to do? You keep driving. You don't stop. You don't name it. You don't give it your attention. Because on this land, attention is invitation. But the challenge isn't just physical isolation. It's cultural, spiritual. Policing in the Navajo Nation means carrying more than a badge and a weapon. It means carrying understanding, a deep awareness that some calls require more than protocol. Some areas must be approached not just with caution, but with respect. There are homes you don't enter unless invited, places you don't speak certain words, stories you don't repeat, even if they sound absurd. Because to violate these unspoken rules isn't just rude. It's dangerous. Not for legal reasons, but because belief here is power. And every officer knows someone who's learned that the hard way. You might be responding to a missing person, but the family doesn't want a search team. Not yet. They want a medicine man first. They want ceremony, cleansing, permission. To ignore this is to insult the very people you swore to protect, and perhaps to put yourself at risk. Even seasoned officers, those born and raised here, know when to pause before entering a hogan. Know when to leave an offering behind before entering sacred ground. Know when to say nothing and just listen. Because in Navajo tradition, some things feed off attention. Some things grow stronger the more they're spoken of. And sometimes the best weapon an officer has is silence. These aren't just patrols. They're spiritual negotiations. Every shift is a gauntlet of decisions between modern law and ancient boundary. And most nights, the hardest part isn't what you see. It's what you feel, the sensation that something is there, just beyond the edge of your headlights, watching, waiting, testing. And that's what haunts the officers most. In the heart of the vast Navajo Nation, where the horizon stretches endlessly and the land itself seems to breathe with ancient secrets, a select group of law enforcement officers confront challenges that defy explanation. These are not just keepers of the peace. They are sentinels standing at the crossroads of the known and the unknown. Among them is Stanley Milford Jr., a name that resonates with both respect and intrigue. Born to a Navajo father and a Cherokee mother, Milford's roots are deeply entwined with the rich tapestry of Native American lore. His upbringing was steeped in stories of shapeshifters, whispers of witchcraft, and admonitions to never whistle at night, lest one attract unwanted attention. When Milford joined the esteemed Navajo Rangers, he anticipated a career filled with routine police work, addressing domestic disputes, conducting cattle inspections, and ensuring the safety of his community. However, destiny had other plans. Alongside his partner, John Dover, Milford was entrusted with a unique mandate to investigate the myriad reports of paranormal activity that permeated the reservation. Their assignments ranged from probing mysterious livestock mutilations to delving into accounts of unidentified flying objects hovering silently over the mesas. One particularly chilling case led Milford to an unassuming office in Window Rock, Arizona. Employees there were tormented by disembodied voices echoing through the halls, unseen hands brushing against them, and an overwhelming sense of being watched. As Milford stood in that dimly lit space, he felt an invisible finger trace across his upper lip, a sensation so tangible it sent shivers down his spine. Moments later, he heard two distinct male voices conversing mere feet away, yet the room remained empty. The climax of this haunting episode was marked by objects inexplicably moving. Chairs sliding across the floor, a laptop battery hurtling against a wall, and coins raining down, all landing heads up. It was as if the very fabric of reality had been momentarily altered. But Milford's experiences, as harrowing as they were, represent just a fraction of the enigmatic encounters reported by Navajo officers. Many choose to remain unnamed, their stories shared in hushed tones among trusted colleagues, for fear of ridicule or the unsettling belief that speaking of such events might summon them anew. There are tales of officers on solitary patrols who, in the dead of night, glimpsed figures lurking at the periphery of their vision, beings that seemed to dissolve into the shadows upon closer inspection. These entities, often referred to as shadow beasts, exuded an aura of malevolence, their presence accompanied by an unnatural stillness in the air. Then there are accounts of confrontations with the dreaded skinwalkers, individuals said to possess the ability to transform into animals at will. One officer recounted a night when, while responding to a routine call, he encountered a large wolf-like creature standing on its hind legs, its eyes gleaming with an unsettling intelligence. As he reached for his radio to call for backup, the creature let out a guttural growl before sprinting into the darkness on two legs, leaving behind only deep, clawed footprints in the dirt. Perhaps most disconcerting are the stories of encounters with entities that defy categorization, the nameless. These are beings that don't fit the descriptions of any known folklore or legend, their forms and intentions shrouded in mystery. Officers speak of sudden drops in temperature, electronic equipment malfunctioning without cause, and an overwhelming sense of dread that grips them without warning. One veteran officer described a night when his patrol car inexplicably stalled on a desolate stretch of road. As he stepped out to inspect the vehicle, he became aware of a towering figure standing just beyond the reach of his headlights. It emitted a low, resonant hum that seemed to vibrate through his very bones. Frozen in place, the officer could only watch as the figure slowly receded into the darkness, leaving him with more questions than answers. These whispered stories, passed down through generations of law enforcement, serve as a stark reminder of the thin veil that separates our reality from the unknown. They underscore the profound challenges faced by those who patrol the vast expanses of the Navajo Nation, not just in terms of physical dangers, but the psychological and spiritual toll exacted by encounters that defy logic and understanding. As we delve deeper into the chronicles of the Navajo Nation Police, prepare to confront cases that will challenge your perceptions of reality. From inexplicable disappearances to confrontations with entities that seem to exist beyond the confines of our understanding. The journey ahead promises to be as enlightening as it is terrifying. In the dense, shadow-laden forests of Michigan's Wexford County, The year 1887 bore witness to an encounter that would etch itself into the annals of cryptid history. Two lumberjacks, seasoned by the perils of their trade, stumbled upon a being that defied comprehension. Standing and imposing 7 feet tall, it possessed the piercing eyes of a predator. Blue or amber, accounts vary, and emitted a howl eerily reminiscent of a human scream. Its form was a grotesque amalgamation, the muscular torso of a man fused with the lupine visage of a dog. This harrowing sighting marked the genesis of the Michigan Dogman legend. As whispers of this beast permeated the region, subsequent decades saw sporadic reports that painted a consistent, albeit terrifying, portrait. In 1937, the quiet town of Paris, Michigan, became the backdrop for another chilling episode. Robert Fortney, while fending off an attack from a pack of wild dogs, claimed that one among them rose to stand on 2 legs, exuding an unsettling intelligence. The 1950s brought forth tales from Allegan County, and by 1967, the communities of Manistee and Cross Village were abuzz with sightings of a similar creature lurking in the shadows. The legend's resurgence in the late 20th century can be attributed to an unexpected source. In 1987, Steve Cook, a disc jockey from Traverse City, crafted a song titled "The Legend" as an April Fool's jest. Drawing inspiration from local myths and narratives, Cook's creation struck a chord deeper than he anticipated. Listeners flooded the station with accounts of their own encounters, suggesting that the Dogman was more than mere fiction. This phenomenon underscored the creature's entrenchment in Michigan's cultural psyche. Yet, the Dogman's domain isn't confined to the wooded realms of Michigan. The creature's spectral footprint extends far beyond, with reports emerging from the arid expanses of the American Southwest. Here, the narratives take on a distinctive hue, interwoven with the rich tapestry of Native American oral traditions. Tribes speak of skinwalkers, malevolent beings capable of assuming animal forms, often described with eerily similar characteristics to the Dogman. These entities are not mere myths, but are regarded with a reverence born of genuine fear and respect. Delving deeper into indigenous lore, one uncovers tales that predate colonial footprints on this land. Stories of upright canines, guardians of ancient realms, and harbingers of omens have been passed down through generations. These narratives serve not only as cautionary tales, but also as affirmations of a world where the veil between the natural and supernatural is perilously thin. As we navigate the shadowy corridors of these legends, one truth becomes evident. The Dogman is more than a mere figment of collective imagination. It is a manifestation of humanity's deepest fears, a symbol of the unknown that lurks just beyond the campfire's glow. Whether as a guardian of sacred lands or a portent of impending doom, the Dogman endures as a chilling reminder of mysteries yet unraveled. The vast expanse of the Navajo Nation, with its rugged terrains and shadowed canyons, has long been a land of mystery and legend. Among the most chilling tales are those of the Dogman, a creature that has left an indelible mark on the collective consciousness of the Navajo people. Witnesses recount the Dogman's approach as a haunting blend of animalistic grace and predatory intent. Its gait is described as unnervingly smooth, moving with a fluidity that belies its formidable size. Observers have noted its eyeshine, pale, almost luminescent eyes that pierce the darkness, reflecting an intelligence that sends shivers down the spine. This eerie luminescence serves as a harbinger, signaling the presence of something otherworldly lurking just beyond the reach of the campfire's glow. The Dogman is not merely a fleeting apparition, but a calculated predator. Survivors of encounters speak of the creature's deliberate stalking, circling their campsites under the cloak of night, its heavy breathing the only sound betraying its proximity. One harrowing account describes the sensation of being watched, followed by the unmistakable crunch of twigs underfoot, only to find the area eerily immaperty upon investigation. Such experiences leave an indelible mark, blending the line between myth and reality. In an official capacity, the Navajo Nation Police have documented encounters that defy explanation. An officer patrolling the desolate stretches near Shiprock reported a series of unsettling events. His cruiser, equipped with state-of-the-art communication tools, experienced inexplicable interference, radio static giving way to guttural growls and whispers in an unknown tongue. Stepping out to investigate, he was met with an overpowering scent of wet fur and decay. The ground around his vehicle bore deep, claw-like impressions, leading him to question the very fabric of his understanding. This report, among others, has been meticulously documented, shedding light on the complexities faced by officers in this enigmatic region. npd.navajo-nsn.gov. To further unravel the enigma of the Dogman, we turn to the insights of D.A. Roberts, a seasoned investigator and author deeply immersed in cryptid lore. In his discussion, Roberts delves into the nuances of Dogman sightings, emphasizing the consistency of reports across diverse regions. He highlights the creature's bipedal stance, its lupine features, and the profound sense of dread it imparts to witnesses. Roberts posits that the Dogman may represent a convergence of indigenous legends and modern encounters, suggesting a deeper, perhaps supernatural, significance. To truly grasp the gravity of these accounts, reenactments provide a visceral connection to the experiences of those who have come face to face with the unknown. In one such depiction, a Navajo officer's patrol is brought to life, illustrating the tension and resolve required to confront the inexplicable. The scene captures the officer's steady hand on his holstered sidearm, his eyes scanning the periphery, as the oppressive silence of the desert night envelops him. Such visualizations bridge the gap between storytelling and reality, allowing viewers to step into the boots of those who serve and protect in the face of the unimaginable. The tales of the Dogman are more than mere folklore. They are a testament to the resilience and courage of the Navajo people and their protectors. These accounts, whether shared around campfires or documented in official reports, serve as a poignant reminder of the mysteries that dwell in the shadows of our world. As we continue to seek answers, we honor the experiences of those who have ventured into the unknown, ensuring that their stories are neither forgotten nor dismissed. As the Navajo Nation continues to grapple with the tangible and intangible forces that roam its vast, rugged terrain, the meaning behind the Dogman legend takes on layers of cultural significance. It is not merely a creature that stalks the night. Its very existence holds a deeper resonance, reflecting the complex relationship between the physical world and the spiritual realms that lie beyond. To some, the Dogman is seen as a protector, an enigmatic guardian of the land, tasked with safeguarding the sacred spaces that lie hidden within the desert and mountainous reaches of the reservation. Its presence, while terrifying, is often interpreted as a sign that the natural world is in balance. For these individuals, the Dogman is a symbol of strength and resilience, a creature that keeps at bay those who would dare to desecrate the land or harm the fragile harmony that exists between nature and humanity. In this context, the Dogman is viewed as a sentinel, one that lurks on the periphery, silently watching over those who respect the earth and its ancient rhythms. Its fearsome visage and predatory behavior, rather than signs of malevolence, are seen as warnings to those who might stray too far from the sacred paths. In these regions, where the teachings of ancestors are woven into the very fabric of everyday life, the Dogman is more than a mere cryptid. It is a living embodiment of the Earth's primal force, fiercely protective of its domain. But not all who encounter the Dogman view it in this light. For others, the creature is a harbinger of death, a chilling omen that presages misfortune, loss, and devastation. In these interpretations, the Dogman is not a protector, but a messenger, one that heralds doom for those who cross its path. There are stories, whispered among the elders and shared only in the most sacred circles, of families and communities that have been touched by tragedy following a Dogman sighting. The connection is not merely coincidental. Those who have seen the creature are believed to have been marked, destined to face an untimely demise or catastrophic loss in their near future. The fear surrounding the Dogman's sightings is rooted in this ominous sense of forewarning, where its appearance marks a turning point in the lives of those who witness it. The idea that the Dogman comes not just to observe, but to declare the beginning of something irreversible adds a layer of dread that permeates through the local culture. Whether seen as an avenger or an executioner, its role is one that eludes simple explanation. It is both a protector and a harbinger, simultaneously blessing and cursing those who encounter it. To truly understand the place of the Dogman within the broader tapestry of Native American lore, we must turn our gaze to another equally chilling and much older legend, the skinwalker. Like the Dogman, skinwalkers are beings that straddle the divide between the human and the supernatural, capable of transforming into animals at will. However, unlike the Dogman, whose sightings are more sporadic and often linked to specific geographic locations, skinwalkers are deeply ingrained in the spiritual fabric of many Native American tribes, particularly the Navajo. Skinwalkers are feared not only for their shape-shifting abilities, but also for their malicious intent. They are believed to possess dark magic, and are often associated with witchcraft and the breaking of sacred taboos. While the Dogman stalks the earth with the quiet intent of a predator, the skinwalker moves through the shadows with the cunning of a spirit, capable of infiltrating homes, manipulating minds, and even causing death or illness. The relationship between these two entities is complex. Where the Dogman embodies the primal forces of nature, the skinwalker embodies the corruption of those very forces, twisting them for personal gain and malevolent purposes. The Dogman's legend is often seen as separate from, yet tangentially linked to, the darker figures of native lore. While the skinwalker is a human-turned monster, the Dogman is a creature apart, perhaps even a supernatural being from an entirely different realm. Yet the similarities between them cannot be ignored. Both are feared for their power, their intelligence, and their capacity for harm. But the Dogman is unique in that it occupies a space somewhere between the sacred and the profane, both revered and reviled in equal measure. In a chilling twist, the Navajo Nation and other surrounding regions are now grappling with a terrifying question. What happens when the Dogman, once the apex predator of these vast lands, is no longer at the top of the food chain? Reports have surfaced from officers and locals alike of sightings that suggest something even darker has begun to stir. Creatures that eclipse the Dogman in size, strength, and malice. Imagine, if you will, a being whose very presence causes the earth to tremble, whose shadow stretches across the horizon like a dark veil. These new entities are described as towering figures, even larger than the Dogman, with limbs that stretch unnaturally and eyes that burn with an unholy fire. Where the Dogman is intelligent, these creatures are primal forces of chaos, moving with an eerie, otherworldly purpose. What is most unsettling, however, is the fact that the Dogman, despite its formidable presence, appears to be in retreat, perhaps even in fear. Some have theorized that these new creatures are somehow connected to the ancient legends of the nameless, beings that exist beyond the comprehension of the human mind, entities that have long waited in the shadows, biding their time. As the dogman's grip on the land loosens, these more terrifying entities seem to rise, unchallenged and unyielding. Could it be that the dogman is merely a herald for an even greater, more terrifying presence? One thing is certain: the fragile balance that has existed for so long in the vast remote corners of the Navajo Nation is beginning to crack, and what lies beneath the surface is far more unsettling than anyone could have anticipated. In the heart of the Navajo Nation, where ancient traditions intertwine with the modern world, a select group of law enforcement officers known as the Navajo Rangers have taken on the extraordinary task of investigating the unexplained. This elite unit addresses not only the conventional duties of law enforcement, but also delves into the realm of the supernatural, seeking to unravel mysteries that have puzzled the community for generations. Established in 1957, the Navajo Rangers are a specialized branch of the Navajo Nation's Department of Resource Enforcement. Their primary mission encompasses the protection and preservation of the tribe's cultural, historical, and archaeological resources. Beyond their traditional law enforcement roles, rangers are also tasked with public education, preventive patrols, and regulatory enforcement, all aimed at safeguarding the rich heritage of the Navajo people. The rangers' duties are diverse, ranging from search and rescue operations to wildlife conservation. However, since the year 2000, a significant portion of their work has involved investigating paranormal phenomena reported across the vast expanse of the reservation. This unique aspect of their role began when Rangers Stanley Milford Jr. and Jonathan Dover were assigned to look into a series of unexplained events, marking the inception of the Rangers. The decision to formalize the investigation of paranormal activities stemmed from numerous reports by community members experiencing unexplained phenomena. Residents spoke of eerie lights in the sky, mysterious creatures lurking in the shadows, and unsettling occurrences within their homes. These accounts, deeply rooted in Navajo culture and beliefs, prompted the establishment of a dedicated team to address such concerns with respect and thoroughness. Milford and Dover, both raised within the Navajo Nation and well-versed in its traditions, approached these investigations with a blend of scientific methodology and cultural sensitivity. They recognized the importance of understanding the cultural context of each report, ensuring that their methods honored Navajo beliefs while seeking logical explanations. Over more than a decade, the Navajo Rangers delved into numerous cases that defied conventional explanation. One notable investigation took them to Upper Fruitland, New Mexico, where over 30 locals reported sightings of a Bigfoot-like creature along the San Juan River. The Rangers meticulously examined the area, documenting unusually large footprints and collecting testimonies, all while respecting the community's cultural perspectives on the creature. In another instance, the Rangers explored reports of strange lights over Satan Butte. Witnesses described observing luminous orbs performing erratic movements in the night sky. Approaching the investigation with both skepticism and reverence, Milford and Dover gathered evidence, interviewed witnesses, and considered both scientific and cultural explanations for the phenomena. The experiences and findings of the Navajo Rangers have been documented in various formats, aiming to shed light on the intersection of Navajo traditions and modern investigative practices. For instance, the book The Paranormal Ranger by Stanley Milford Jr. offers an in-depth look into his personal experiences with the unexplained during his tenure with the Rangers. The memoir provides readers with a first-hand account of the challenges and revelations encountered while investigating phenomena that straddle the line between cultural lore and tangible evidence. The Navajo Rangers' approach to paranormal investigations exemplifies a delicate balance between honoring traditional beliefs and seeking empirical understanding. Their work underscores the importance of cultural sensitivity, community trust, and a commitment to preserving the Navajo Nation's rich heritage. By integrating respect for ancient traditions with modern investigative techniques, the Rangers continue to serve as guardians of both the tangible and intangible aspects of Navajo culture. Note: for a more comprehensive understanding of the Navajo Rangers' paranormal investigations, consider reading The Paranormal Ranger by Stanley Milford, Jr., which delves deeper into the cases and cultural insights discussed here. As the Navajo Rangers continued their mission to probe the unexplained, their case files grew thick with accounts of encounters that defied conventional understanding. While many of these reports could be explained through natural phenomena or misidentifications, a disturbing number of them remained unresolved, raising more questions than answers. This segment will focus on some of the most chilling cases that Stanley Milford Jr. and his team investigated. Cases involving flying humanoids, invisible attackers, and shape-shifting entities. These accounts have not only added to the growing enigma of the supernatural in the Navajo Nation, but have also left an indelible mark on the officers tasked with investigating them. Stanley Milford Jr., one of the most well-known figures in the field of paranormal law enforcement within the Navajo Nation, became deeply immersed in these strange and often terrifying phenomena. As a trained investigator and seasoned ranger, Milford approached these cases with a combination of skepticism, reverence, and a deep understanding of Navajo spiritual beliefs. His personal encounters with the unexplained were documented in his book, The Paranormal Ranger, where he chronicled several unsettling investigations that revealed a sinister layer to the supernatural presence on the reservation. Milford and his team were among the first to formally investigate reports of flying humanoids, strange, winged figures that appeared in the night sky, moving with unnatural speed and agility. The most famous of these reports came from a rural community near the eastern borders of the Navajo Nation, where a series of witnesses described seeing tall, shadowy figures with glowing eyes soaring silently above the land. These figures, often described as being between 7 to 9 feet tall, would appear without warning, hovering for a few moments before vanishing into the darkness. The phenomenon of flying humanoids is not unique to the Navajo Nation. Across the globe, cultures have stories of winged beings, often linked to foreboding omens or supernatural forces. However, what made these reports particularly disturbing was the lack of any known explanation. When Milford and his team arrived on the scene, they conducted thorough investigations. They found no evidence of large birds or aircraft in the area. Local witnesses remained adamant that what they saw were not creatures of flesh and blood, but something far more otherworldly, beings that seemed to defy the laws of nature. One particularly chilling report involved a rancher who claimed to have seen a flying humanoid while driving along a lonely stretch of highway late one evening. As he approached a bend in the road, he suddenly caught sight of a tall, dark figure standing on the edge of a cliff. The figure, standing motionless, appeared to have enormous wings folded against its back. The rancher slammed on his brakes and watched in horror as the figure spread its wings and took to the air, gliding silently above the road. The rancher was too terrified to continue, but when he turned his truck around, the figure had vanished, leaving behind nothing but a lingering sense of dread. Equally unnerving were reports of invisible attackers, instances where individuals or families were violently assaulted by unseen forces. These encounters often left victims with injuries that couldn't be explained by any physical assailant. The attacks would occur in the dead of night when the area was silent and seemingly peaceful. Victims would wake to find themselves scratched, bruised, and in some cases, suffering from broken bones, all without any sign of a physical attacker. One of the most perplexing cases involved a Navajo family living in a remote home near Tuba City. The family had been plagued by unexplained disturbances for weeks. Objects would move on their own, doors would slam shut, and strange noises filled the house. Then, one night, as the family slept, they were awoken by violent thrashing. The father of the household, a sturdy man of considerable strength, was found badly beaten, his face swollen and bruised, though no one had touched him. The family was terrified, claiming that something invisible had attacked him in his sleep. When the rangers arrived to investigate, they found no trace of any human or animal presence, only a deep, unsettling chill in the air. Despite their best efforts to recreate the events using conventional investigative methods, they could find no logical explanation. This was not the only such report. Over the years, the rangers documented several cases where individuals had been struck or injured by unseen forces, some of which seemed to exhibit an intelligence of their own. The physical trauma sustained in these invisible attacks often mirrored that of encounters with physical creatures. Bruises, cuts, and abrasions that seemed to appear out of nowhere, and yet the perpetrators were never found. Perhaps the most terrifying cases in Milford's files involve reports of shape-shifting entities, beings that could change form at will, shifting between human and animal appearances with terrifying ease. These reports often blended traditional Navajo stories of skinwalkers with contemporary sightings of beings that seemed capable of assuming not only animal forms, but also the forms of other humans. Witnesses described seeing figures that appeared as ordinary individuals, only to morph into horrific beasts before their eyes. One particularly harrowing case involved a group of hunters who encountered a strange man while out in the desert. The man, who was dressed in ragged clothes, appeared to be lost. As the hunters approached him to offer help, they suddenly noticed that his face seemed to shift, subtly at first, as though his features were stretching and warping. In a moment of horror, the figure leapt into the air and transformed into a coyote mid-flight, disappearing into the brush. The hunters, initially in disbelief, became frantic as they recounted the impossible transformation to the rangers. The physical evidence at the scene, while inconclusive, suggested that the hunters had indeed witnessed something supernatural, something capable of taking on the form of both man and beast. Milford's investigation into these shape-shifting entities uncovered patterns that suggested a deep connection to ancient spiritual practices, with some speculating that these entities were tied to the skinwalker legends, the malevolent, witch-like beings capable of assuming the shape of any animal. However, what made these shape-shifting entities so unsettling was the ability to adopt human forms, making it difficult to distinguish them from ordinary people. As the case files accumulated, the line between myth and reality blurred further. The Navajo Rangers, despite their training and dedication to the truth, found themselves grappling with cases that stretched the limits of their understanding. Some incidents could be explained by natural phenomena, but others remained unsolved, unsettling, unnerving, and deeply unsettling. What began as a small, specialized task force dedicated to preserving cultural heritage had now become the last line of defense against forces that defied reason. And as more cases surfaced, it became clear that the boundary between the natural and the supernatural was far thinner than anyone had previously realized. The deeper the Navajo Rangers delved into the mysterious and often terrifying cases they encountered, the more they began to understand the psychological and spiritual toll that such investigations could take. These were not just ordinary crimes or unexplained disappearances. These were encounters with forces that existed beyond the physical realm. Forces that could leave invisible marks not only on the body, but also on the mind and soul. To confront these forces, the Rangers had to be more than just law enforcement officers. They had to be spiritual custodians, trained not only in investigation, but also in the ancient ceremonial protocols of their people. The very nature of their work required a profound understanding of the sacred, the cursed, and the unseen worlds. Unlike typical law enforcement agencies, the Navajo Rangers' training was unique. They were not only equipped to handle criminal investigations, but were also taught the sacred rites of the Navajo people, learning how to navigate the spiritual landscape of their culture. These sacred protocols helped them manage their interactions with forces that many outside their community would dismiss as folklore or superstition, but to the Rangers, these forces were very real. In the world of the Navajo Nation, the spirit world is not just a distant belief. It is a living, breathing presence that interacts with the physical realm. The Rangers were trained to understand and respect these forces, for every case they undertook brought them closer to a profound and often dangerous reality that could not be explained by conventional methods. They learned the importance of maintaining balance, both spiritually and mentally, when confronted with the unknown. For many, this meant undergoing ceremonial practices and rituals, some of which were passed down through generations, to help cleanse their minds and spirits after an investigation. The importance of these ceremonies cannot be understated. The world the Rangers navigated was one where entities existed that could manipulate the minds and emotions of those who encountered them. In some cases, these forces were so overwhelming that even the most seasoned ranger could feel the strain of dealing with them. Stanley Milford Jr. and others often spoke of the emotional toll these investigations took on the officers involved. It wasn't just the fear of facing monstrous creatures or the anxiety of witnessing the unexplained. It was the deep, existential exhaustion of confronting an evil that transcended human understanding. In interviews conducted by various outlets, many of the Rangers described feeling as though they were standing on the edge of a world that constantly threatened to unravel. They spoke of the mental fatigue they experienced after encountering certain entities, an unease that would persist long after the investigation was over. For many officers, these investigations became a kind of spiritual warfare. The world around them would seem to close in, suffocating them with dread. They reported feeling a deep sense of isolation, as if they were carrying a burden that no one else could understand. This was especially true for younger officers, who after their first few encounters with the supernatural began to show signs of mental strain. Excerpts from Stanley Milford Jr.'s book, The Paranormal Ranger, offer insight into the psychological toll these investigations had on him and his team. Milford recalls how one particularly harrowing case left him physically and mentally exhausted, not only from the danger involved, but from the overwhelming presence of an unseen force that seemed to follow him long after the case had closed. He describes a persistent feeling of being watched, a sensation that became unbearable during certain investigations. In one of his most revealing passages, Milford writes, "I remember driving down a dirt road one evening, feeling as if something was behind me, always just out of sight. I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone, but when I looked in the rearview mirror, all I saw was the road ahead. It wasn't until I returned home that night that I realized the full toll of that case had taken root. I had seen things I couldn't explain, and the darkness had followed me." These words reflect the unease that many rangers experience long after a case is over, an unshakable feeling of lingering malevolence. One Navajo ranger, who preferred to remain anonymous, shared his own experience in an interview with a local reporter. He described a case in which a family had reported hearing strange noises and feeling an ominous presence in their home. Upon investigating, the ranger found evidence of nothing out of the ordinary, no break-ins, no physical disturbances. But as he spent more time in the home, he began to feel a subtle, almost imperceptible pressure weighing on his chest, as if the air itself was thickening around him. Later that evening, he began to experience vivid nightmares, so real that they felt like memories. The images in his dreams of tall, shadowy figures standing just beyond his reach haunted him for weeks. These experiences were not isolated. Many rangers reported having similar episodes of psychological disorientation after cases that involved powerful supernatural forces. The work, they admitted, took more from them than just their physical energy. It seeped into their minds, twisting their perceptions and leaving them vulnerable to the kind of fear that was almost impossible to overcome. As troubling as the reports of DOGMAN and other cryptid sightings were, they were only the tip of the iceberg. The true horrors the rangers faced were not merely physical creatures or supernatural entities that could be tracked and studied. No, there were darker, more terrifying forces at play, entities so beyond human comprehension that even the bravest of rangers began to question whether the danger was real at all, or whether their minds were breaking under the strain of confronting the impossible. The dogman, tall, wolf-like, bipedal, was terrifying in its own right. Yet, the rangers knew that there were other creatures, far more dangerous, that walked the earth unnoticed. Some were known only in whispers, their very existence forbidden to speak of aloud. These were the entities that could shapeshift, that could blur the line between the living and the dead. These were the malevolent forces that seemed to linger in the shadows, too dark to be seen and too powerful to confront directly. The skinwalkers were the stuff of nightmares, but even more terrifying was the possibility that some of the things the rangers encountered were far beyond anything the world had prepared them for. In the world of the Navajo Rangers, Dogman was far from the worst thing out there, and the longer they investigated, the more they understood that to face the truly terrifying entities that roamed their homeland, they would have to rely not just on their training, but on their very souls. The worst horrors, the ones that make Dogman seem tame, were the ones that couldn't be easily explained, the ones that would leave a mark on both the mind and the spirit. And those horrors, the rangers knew, were waiting just beyond the horizon. The Chaco Canyon, a desolate, wind-swept landscape in the heart of the Navajo Nation, was once the site of an ancient civilization, and even today it retains an aura of mystery and dread. Towering sandstone cliffs and ruins of stone dwellings stand as silent sentinels to a forgotten world. But it's the dark stories tied to the canyon that have kept local residents on edge for centuries. One of the most terrifying accounts to come out of Chaco Canyon in recent years involves an entity so unnatural, so horrifying, that it became known simply as the Nameless Howler. The Nameless Howler is a creature that has eluded description by those who have encountered it. Its form, its intentions, and its very essence remain a puzzle. But what is universally agreed upon is the sound it makes. Officers of the Navajo Nation Police have shared chilling reports of a scream so horrifying that it triggered physical reactions far beyond fear. It's not just that the scream is loud or shrill, it's that it resonates deep within the human psyche, turning the stomach, twisting the mind, and leaving those who hear it on the verge of insanity. The first encounter with the Nameless Howler was reported by a team of officers on routine patrol, tasked with checking the canyon's remote area for any illegal activities. As they made their way into the desolate landscape, something unsettling hung in the air. an unnatural stillness that permeated every corner of the canyon. Then, in the distance, they heard it. A low, guttural scream that echoed across the canyon's walls. The sound was unmistakable, but it didn't belong to any known animal. It was not the cry of a wolf or a coyote. It wasn't the howl of a mountain lion or any other predator native to the area. This scream came from something else entirely, something ancient, primal, and entirely unnatural. As the officers listened, the sound seemed to reverberate through their very bones. Their stomachs turned, dizziness and nausea set in immediately. One officer, unable to keep his composure, dropped to his knees as the world around him seemed to distort. The air itself felt thick, oppressive, almost suffocating. As the officers tried to push through the sensation, another effect took hold. Hallucinations. The officers began seeing shapes in the distance, twisted, shadowy figures that seemed to fade in and out of existence. One officer described seeing a man-shaped silhouette standing atop one of the cliffs, only for it to vanish as quickly as it appeared. Another officer saw a group of shadowy forms moving towards them, but when he blinked, they were gone. The effects were terrifying, and it wasn't long before the officers realized that whatever was causing these hallucinations was no longer just a sound. It was something malevolent, a force that was attacking them on a spiritual level, warping their perception of reality itself. Some of them started hearing whispers, voices in the wind, indecipherable yet filled with an undeniable malice. The worst part of this encounter, however, was what the officers found after the scream subsided. They scoured the area for any sign of what could have made the noise. No animal tracks were found, no physical evidence to indicate that any living creature had passed through the canyon in the time preceding their patrol. The ground was untouched, smooth and undisturbed, save for the eerie absence of life. No footprints, no signs of an animal's presence. It was as though whatever made that sound had materialized from thin air and just as quickly had vanished. But the most chilling aftermath of this encounter was the effect it had on the officers themselves. One officer, who had been particularly affected by the hallucinatory experience, quit his job just days after the incident. He spoke to colleagues in hushed tones, revealing that he could no longer shake the feeling of being followed, even when he was at home. His mind, he said, was haunted by images of those dark figures he had seen in the canyon and the whispered voices that had seemed so real. He had trouble sleeping, and when he did manage to rest, he was plagued by nightmares of being trapped in the canyon, unable to escape the endless howling. The officer eventually left the force, retreating to a different part of the country, away from the place that had broken his spirit. But even after he left, he continued to speak of the nameless howler, claiming that its presence had not left him. The experiences in Chaco Canyon had forever changed him, physically, emotionally, and mentally. This incident in Chaco Canyon became one of the most disturbing and perplexing cases the Navajo Rangers had ever investigated. What was the nameless howler? A spirit, a creature, or something more sinister? Even after numerous follow-up investigations, the Rangers could find no clear answers. The physical evidence was non-existent, and yet every officer who had been present that day was irrevocably affected by it. The reports, the physical and psychological toll it took, the lack of any explanation. These facts led many to believe that the nameless howler was not just a creature, but a force, a primal energy tied to the land itself, ancient and unknowable. The encounter left a deep scar on the Rangers who experienced it. Some of them would speak of it in hushed tones, others would refuse to acknowledge it entirely, haunted by what they had seen, or thought they had seen. But one thing remained undeniable. Chaco Canyon was a place of great power, a place where the veil between the living and the dead was thin, and where the forces that roamed the earth could not always be explained by logic or science. The nameless howler was a creature or presence that defied the rational mind. It wasn't something that could be captured on camera or scientifically analyzed. Its existence was only made real through the experiences of those who had heard it scream, seen its hallucinatory manifestations, and walked away with something more than just fear. It was the lingering feeling that they had encountered something older, darker, and far more dangerous than they had ever imagined.